So as we get started, first I just want to welcome you all this evening to George Mason Elementary School. My name is Dr. Gregory C. Hutchins Jr. I'm the school superintendent for Alexandria City Public Schools. And I'm hoping that we will be able to engage in discussion this evening, and also for me to share out just some information that we have been talking about over the past week with several different groups or audiences over the past week. Before I get started, I do see that there are a couple of our board members. I saw one just come in, Ms. Jacinta Green, who is in the back of the room. Ms. Green, one of our board members. We may have some other board members who are going to be joining us today as well. And then I will be introducing our Director of Capital Programs Planning and Design, Erica Gulick, who will also join me as we talk through this discussion. So first and foremost, I want to start with the bigger piece, and that is kind of this PowerPoint presentation that went out last week, last weekend, into our community. And I do want to first apologize to our community and how that information went out. I do want to say that the intent of the PowerPoint presentation was, one, not to cause, the stir that it has caused in the community. And I also want to say that it was not intended to go out as it went out, and not to keep things from the community at all. But really, when we talk about feasibility studies, which we're going to be able to talk about today, we want to provide the community, as well as our school community, just some understanding of how feasibility studies work and how we use information that comes out of the feasibility study. But before we get into that, I just want to give some context to how we got to last week. So we initially started this journey of having a feasibility study here at George Mason Elementary School last spring. And a part of that happened, and the reason for us doing a request for proposals to have a feasibility study conducted here at the school is because the board wanted to know, is it feasible to be able to build a new structure on the George Mason site while students are currently in this building? So meaning, could we build a new school and still have kids in this space? Or do we have to have swing space and build the school and have kids relocate to another location when building a new structure or a new school here at the George Mason site? So that was the initial reason for us even having the feasibility study. That feasibility study, that request for proposal was done back in June when we selected the firm, which is Studio 27, that we are currently working with now. And it was really to answer those questions. You fast forward to about October 23rd, and I think that was the date, is that accurate, for the joint meeting that we had with the City Council and the school board, October 23rd of 2019. We had a joint meeting, and a part of that session, some conversation came up about how can we be more innovative with our co-location services, right, and our co-location opportunities that we have. Now, co-location means a lot of things, right? So I'm going to give you one example. We have Campagna here at George Mason already. That's a co-location. That's bringing in a private organization to use our facility, and our students benefit from it, but they also benefit from it because they have our space, or they're utilizing our space when we're not. So there are all different types of forms of co-location that we already have in place. We have rec centers at some of our schools. That's another co-location opportunity. So this gives you an idea of what co-location means. But at that meeting, there was a discussion that specifically talked about how could we be a little more innovative with our co-location opportunities in the city of Alexandria. There was also some discussion around affordable housing. And our teams, which we have internal teams, both the school staff as well as the city staff, they meet on a monthly basis to have discussions around a number of things. But after that October 23rd meeting, at the November meeting, staff meeting, meaning city staff and school staff, there was discussion around, if we're going to be innovative and if we're going to explore some other types of co-location opportunities, we need to talk to our company, which is Studio 27, or our consultant, Studio 27, and have them to investigate if we were to do affordable housing at the different sites that they're surveying. So that would include George Mason Elementary School and Core Kelly Elementary School. The purpose in asking them to explore that was because they were already surveying our both sites. They were already working on the feasibility study. We have already contracted with them, and it was better for us to have them do this exploration now versus it coming up years from now and the city's asking, have you all considered co-location? Is that possible? We wouldn't have to go hire somebody to do that type of work. So that was about November when that happened. In December, we had discussions in more in depth, and we started talking about co-location as well as how affordable housing could be a part of the co-location services. And that specifically came out of the meeting at Douglas MacArthur Elementary School, because they're going through right now their planning phase of their new school at Douglas MacArthur. So at the December meeting for Douglas MacArthur, there were discussions specifically about co-location and affordable housing being a part of co-location. You bring last week, so now we're getting into January. And in January, and I just want to give you kind of a process of how things operate internally for us. When we receive a feasibility study, and typically when we receive a feasibility study, we're receiving a lot of data and a lot of information. Our team puts together, slides that includes all of the information that are in any type of report. And I'm using a feasibility study as an example because that's what happened last week. So all of that information that our team had access to was put into a PowerPoint presentation. That was a draft PowerPoint presentation because there are times when we have everything put all into a PowerPoint presentation, and we have discussions internally, and we decide that we're going to not have this all discussed at one particular time, that we want to make sure that we start at point A, and then we get to point B, and then to point C, and so forth and so on. We knew that the board wanted to specifically talk about whether it was feasible for us to be able to build a school here at this site while the students were in this current building. So we wanted to make sure that that first presentation, which was last Thursday's school board meeting, that was the focus, and not to have discussions around all the other potential options that were a part of the feasibility study. So once that PowerPoint presentation was sent, the draft PowerPoint presentation that had everything in it, once that was sent to our principals, we present them to both our principals at Core Kelly as well as our principal at here at George Mason. That once we sent that information out, we never sent back to them the revised copy that was actually published on Friday. And that's why we have two different versions of the PowerPoint presentation. The version that was actually posted, which when we post, it's a public document. It goes through our ESB, which is also called Electronic School Board. It's a software system that we use. It goes through a number of approvals, and then once it's finally approved by the superintendent, it gets posted, and then it goes live, and anybody can see it. It's kind of how our process works. Because we did not, on our end, send the revised version, then our principals, they did have the older version that did not include any revisions that were done with that PowerPoint presentation. And that was a version that actually went public, that went out. I mean, both were out public, but that's why we had two versions out there. I do want to draw the attention, and today I want to be able to talk through what a feasibility study is, because it's very important for our community to know that when we hired Studio 27 initially just to let us know if it's feasible to build a construction here while kids are in the building, and when we began to ask them to explore these other innovative co-location opportunities, it is still not the intent that whatever is in the feasibility study is a recommendation or something that we do. And that is something that is very important for this community, as well as any community where we're conducting feasibility studies. Because a feasibility study is not a directive, it is not a plan, and I've seen some of the material or, some of the things that are on social media and things that are out there that are referencing a plan, and it's not a plan. We're not at the phase now to be able to plan. And we're also not at a phase where we can even stand behind, whether a co-location such as affordable housing is the right thing to do for any of our schools, because there's still some more research that needs to be done in that particular area. But I do want to bring up Erica Gulick to talk a little about feasibility studies. But before we get into that, I do want to open it to, you can just come on up because you may be able to answer some of these questions, because I want to open the floor for some questions, because I think that if we don't allow you all to get some of the questions out, nobody's going to pay attention to the thing about the feasibility study. So I would rather us come here tonight and be able to address concerns and comments and questions that you all have this evening, so that then we can talk through what the feasibility study entails, what are our next steps in regards to us staying on our original timeline, and how we're going to be working through this over the next several years to make sure that we are accommodating the needs of our students here at George Mason. So I saw a hand go up when I was talking over here, and I can't remember. Yes.
My name is Susan Gallagher. I live in the neighborhood.
Does she need the mic?
Yeah. My name is Susan. I live in the neighborhood. I was wondering, when you said back in October or November you started the feasibility study, one of the pieces of that would be the neighborhood and the students and the parents all involved. Why wasn't at that time you reached out to the neighborhood and the parents to get their input back in October, November, versus now January and we're all upset?
So one, that's a good question. Two, we wouldn't be here right now, right, if we would have done that back in October, November. But we also would have fast forwarded some of what's happening right now too. We haven't had, what I mean by that is, we didn't have enough information in October, November to even know if it was the right thing for us to, which we still don't. We still don't have enough information to say that it is the right thing for George Mason. So right now, I can't even say that the affordable housing piece is an important,
You're not answering her question, which is, why didn't, and I'm sorry, why, if the city came to you and said, we want you to do this, right?
Yeah.
In October, let me finish this. Prior to that, you had no plans to do it, right?
that was not on the, no, we were not having discussions about affordable housing,
If you're gonna
no.
add a major issue like that, that's gonna have a huge impact on this neighborhood, why did you not first address the issue of desirability with the residents
Yep.
versus feasibility? Because
So-
those are two
yeah.
dramatically different issues.
So I think that, I'm gonna go back to what I was saying, and that was, we need to make sure that something is even worth having a discussion to see if it is even feasible. Because we could go out into the community and have a discussion about doing something that is not even feasible, and now we have the community engaged in a conversation, and we can have people with high energy and, stirred up about something that can't even happen. So we wanted to first see if that was feasible. And since we had Studio 27 already working through our feasibility study just to determine if we can build on the space that on the site behind us,
Sir,
that was the reason why we looked at that. So we did not come to the community because we didn't know if that was even possible. So we did not go to the community to ask
But we think
if it was
came
okay.
to us, we would have said, these are the 5
Yeah.
options we're thinking about. And if you said those 5, such as mental health, affordable housing, whatever, we would have had input into it.
or
And-
this idea as a whole.
Right,
Yes.
or
Could have
scratch
been
it.
nixed before you
Yeah.
spent the money to do a feasibility study on
Right.
something the neighborhood does not want.
Yeah, and part of my question is like how you're defining feasible. I mean, are there others, it seems to me there should be other standards about how you define feasible. For example, if you cut down the woods, you may call it feasible, but shouldn't your standards be part of how you're defining whether something is feasible? I mean, there are environmental standards, there are historic preservation standards, there's the quality of the community standards. So whatever criteria you put into that feasibility study will determine the output. If the only issue that you determine that you're looking at in terms of feasibility is keeping kids in this building, it seems to me you haven't defined what is feasible in the correct manner.
Sir, it's right here. Process, first part says site and context. Underneath there, it says number one, neighborhood fabric. So evidently, neighborhood fabric was taken into consideration as part of this feasibility study.
But I think we would.
I don't know how we
I think
arrived
would disagree
at
with
this. I know. I don't know how we arrived here, but that is the number one criteria under site and context and part of the feasibility study. Perhaps you could talk
So,
to.
yeah, so what I want to emphasize is that the feasibility study right now is really still in progress. You know, we have released the draft feasibility study last week because we wanted the community to have everything that we currently have. But the feasibility study is still in progress. I can have, which I will have Erica talk a little bit about some of the additional steps that still have to be taken over the next couple of months. The final feasibility study will not be prepared until April, May of 2020. So, and that's always been the timeline. So there's still a number of factors that have to continue to occur. The one thing that we knew we needed for last Thursday was whether it was feasible to build. And that was really what our number one, focus was on for last Thursday's board meeting. Could we build at George Mason site? Could we build
But again,
at the
definition
Corkelly
of
site?
feasibility. Yes, you cut down woods and do other things if you define feasible that way, but I don't think we would define that as, all the criteria for what is feasible. Neighborhood fabric and other things, and environmental standards.
But you also said in last week's meeting, they said they didn't even look at whether, the guy said they just plopped down the building, and we even said, why is it in the far, far, far back? Oh, it really could have been anywhere. We just kind of put it there to make sure that people could tell it's different from the current one. That's a feasibility thing. And somebody said, what about the water that's under the ground there? Because everybody knows that it bubbles up and the field never gets dry and this and that. Oh, well, we would look at that at a different point. That doesn't make any sense. All these little factors that you're saying, like, we're going to build here, plop. Okay, now, feasible is, can you swing the kids? Can you use that school that they're using now for MacArthur? Swing the kids, right after they swing the kids for MacArthur, and then build on the site. That was never talked about. It's always a given. There's the school, back at get rid of the tennis courts, get rid of the wood, get rid of the running path, get rid of the field. But there's nothing that looked into it. The guys even said, we didn't look into it. We even looked at that. We looked at the
You're assuming that the design process.
existing building is what the guy
You're
said.
assuming that the design process is a linear process.
No,
You
come
have to have
on.
some
Come on,
basis. You
they're
can't just
bringing
pick
the
up a whole-
feasibility study to the school board, and someone needs to go back and look at that RFP that you guys put out, because it is not the case that the feasibility study was only to address if you can build where the kids are still in the building. It has a number of criteria. That may have been one of the things that was supposed to be looked at, but it was also supposed to be looked at, renovate and do an addition. You guys have put out an estimate of $68 million for this project. And how can you do that if you haven't analyzed what it's gonna cost to do renovate and do an addition versus rebuild in the existing location? You guys deleted a slide from that presentation that showed building in the existing footprint of the school. You said there's not supposed to be a recommendation. It says in your summary right here, both schools should be complete replacements. So it looks to me like you're saying George Mason should be a complete tear down and rebuild at least $68 million. You're supposed to have cost estimates as part of the RFP. There's been no analysis of what this is going to cost other than perhaps the $68 million. It's reported you said that doing swings is going to cost $40, $50 million. I can't believe that. But these people that you hired in this RFP are supposed to be analyzing the various alternatives and what it would cost. And then these environmental issues may preclude altogether any rebuild and relocation, whether you want to put affordable housing or not. And even in the existing space, you have no idea, they have no idea. It was abundant at the school building board meeting that they had no idea. They have egg on their face. They don't appear to know what they're doing. And somebody needs to go back and look at this RFP and stop, saying stuff that's just not true.
So,
And why is the
yes.
staff promoting this affordable housing thing? I Googled it and tried to research it. There's no literature on it, putting, affordable housing on school property. And who are the elected officials in the city that are promoting this? I'd like to know. The staff is not driving this process. The elected officials who are responsible to the citizens are the ones that should be driving this process.
So I think that one thing that's very important, and I'm going to have Erica actually talk through the feasibility study and what it entails, because and I mentioned this earlier, so I'm just going to repeat myself. We posted the feasibility study last Thursday because we wanted to provide that information to the community, because the PowerPoint presentation that went out into the community, we wanted to just show this is the information that we have. But I do want, let me finish, I'll let you speak, sir, so I want to finish talking, please, I'm sorry. But what we did was that we wanted to make sure that we were providing the information out into the community, and we also wanted to make sure that the community is aware that the feasibility study is still not complete. All the pieces that you just discussed are exactly what is a part of the feasibility study. There is supposed to be an estimation. There is supposed to be an environmental component. All of those things have not happened as of yet. That was one of the reasons why the first meeting with the board was initially to just talk about whether it's feasible, not whether you should do it, not where it should be, not when it should happen. It was, can you build another structure on the land that we already own? That was what the first meeting was supposed to be about. But I'm going to have Erica just go through what the full feasibility study entails. So I'm going to have Erica just to provide, and the reason why I'm trying to keep us so that we can get all information out, and I want to be able to get to everybody's questions, but I also want to try to give people one question that they're asking, because we have a lot of people in the room, and I also want to provide information, because tonight is about getting information. So if we can just talk to what the feasibility study entails, that could answer maybe some people's questions.
Well, sir, are we going to be able to ask you questions directly?
That's what you're doing right now, yes.
Oh, well,
Yes.
May I ask my question? I've had my hand up for 10 minutes.
feasibility study,
No, I have questions for you, sir.
and then I will.
So,
I'll be brief.
It's not
So-
gonna be a long presentation.
So I just want to address, a lot of the things that you're talking about are included in a feasibility study. So as the slide previous says, what we may consider feasible after the feasibility study comes out, it may not be feasible for us to tear down hundreds of trees, or we may decide that swing space is feasible for us or it's not feasible for us. I think the goal of the feasibility study is to include multiple site diagrams. That will include renovation and addition, because that was an additional question of the feasibility study RFP. The three main components were, are they in the right order first, based on the building conditions? So should George Mason still go before Cora Kelly? Secondly, based on the building conditions, should they be full building replacements, or can we renovate? And that takes different forms. So we could keep the front facade and phase the whole construction and have trailers and renovate as we go. That will be an option included in the feasibility study. The option that you all saw and that went out was the most recent, the maximum use, and the not swinging kids on site or off site. So I just want to be clear that the cost estimates, the environmental impacts, all of those things will be included. Some of the specific things that the architect is still working on, that's why we haven't completed the full technical evaluation to come to you all and have then the community discussion and the discussion about the neighborhood fabric, are the geotechnical. So that will determine, okay, what water is back there? Can we do geothermal? What are some of our other energy options on the site? As well as the full site surveys, which will really look at the topography and how will that impact our neighbors if we start to change the topography of the site. So those things will be included. There is a feasibility study of Patrick Henry. If you look at it, you will notice that the site diagrams in there look nothing like what we finally adopted as the design for Patrick Henry. And we're happy to send that out to Civic Association so you could see what a full feasibility study looks like, the different options it has, because that also had a swing space on site option or off site. And I think that may be helpful for all of you. So we can go back into questions, but I'm hoping that clarified some things.
I don't need a microphone.
I think we're doing a mic.
Oh, okay, sorry. So I just want to understand the change order here.
So I believe you said that in June of 2019, an RFP was let. Studio 27 bid and won the bid. And that was for determine whether or not we swing space or not. That's what you said, I believe. Then later, October 23rd, well into that RFP process, it was suggested, or you were told, none of us are clear, that rather than simply define COLO as being something like Campagna Center or something like the rec centers, we should look at more creative options, and specifically affordable housing. So now that the RFP has been up and running since June of 19 or something like that, and you'd been looking at swing or not, to swing space or not, who's paying for the additional work that's being done to look at the more creative COLO options, which includes affordable housing? And the reason, so one, I'm curious, is city council or the city paying for that, or is the school system paying for that? So that's my first question, and then I'll have a follow-up, whichever the answer is.
So the request for Studio 27 to take a look at co-locations such as affordable housing did not result in a change order. They did not charge us more money to do that. However, the city has indicated on other projects that if they cause us any cost exposure, that they will fund that.
Okay, so,
Yes. So given that there's a quid pro quo here, don't charge us anything here and we'll make it up over here, how does that comport with the city attorney's, not quote, but paraphrase in today's ALXnow.com article, where she's paraphrased as saying the decision about co-locating housing on ACPS property, and we still haven't defined out here what's ACPS property and what's city property, I understand that, is ultimately up to the school board. Hopefully all three members of this ward are here tonight. The city council cannot lawfully determine what goes on school grounds, says City Attorney Joanna Anderson. So my question would be, has she kind of, if the school system is getting this change order and not paying for it out of its budget, but instead is getting it for a kind of a quid pro quo from the city, is that not city interference with an independently elected branch of the government? Has not the seal been pierced, so to speak?
I would say no. And let me just tell you, I think that one thing that we had mentioned, I know, and I'm speaking from the school's point of view, our responsibility is to make sure we have an educational program for the students who are in George Mason. We're not in the business of affordable housing. Right. We're not in the business of, so, and I think we made that very clear. And we also had the discussion, as this continues, this conversation is continuing to happen with the city. And one thing that is important for us is that we have to do all those things first, meaning making sure that we are serving this population and the needs of the students. That second conversation, in regards to affordable housing, it's not necessarily our issue or our concern. Having a discussion with the city is something that, we have all been talking about, and that's just collaboration between the schools and the city. So this is just discussions. I think that discussions and collaboration doesn't necessarily mean that the school system supports any and everything that comes our way from the city.
Sir, you're spending money. You're spending scarce resources. You're diverting them away from educational attainment in the classroom to feasibility studies or in-kind transfers.
So I think that we're not, until we get, more data and more information to even make a sound decision like that, we really don't have any stance right now. What we are focused solely on is making sure we have a good educational program.
Thank you so much. I'm Tracy Moorhead. I live about 3 blocks from here. And like many people in this room, I've had 3 children come through this school. My son is in the same class as your son at Minnie Howard. And I want to see this school and this, yes. I want to see this school and this community be maintained the way it has been. I feel like you have been put in a really bad position. I feel that you, on behalf of ACPS, were trying to do the right thing and figure out how to renovate this school and make sure that the students here had the space and the services that they needed, and that you were told, and your staff and ACPS in general was told, to go and be more innovative. I don't know what that means for the folks who told you to do that, but clearly they have their own perspective. And I think what you're hearing this evening is that you need to back up, because what you said earlier was, we weren't supposed to see that slide that came out last week. And yet we did, and that's how you got this room full of very upset, concerned people about what's going to happen to our community and to the school that our children are in or have gone to, or adults in this room who went to this school. I would strongly suggest that you back up and that you create a task force who works with this community to funnel the questions that we have, because they're not all going to get answered tonight. The heated concerns that are present in this room are not all going to be alleviated. We have questions about how Studio 27 was selected, how the change order was made, where they're going with this, what co-location means, what feasibility means, how long it would take to construct a new school, what would happen to the green space, what would happen to the traffic, what type of affordable housing are you talking about this, what would happen to traffic, is Cameron Mills going to be the new seminary? These are all questions on people's minds. You're not going to get them answered tonight, and you need to have a way for this community to be able to speak with you directly in a constructive way. It's not going to happen in this room, and I strongly urge you to make sure that we have an ongoing dialogue with you to get those questions answered, so that we can move forward together for the students and the families who need to live here now and who will live here in the future.
Thank you, and I agree with you. A part of the process, and we shared this with the board last Thursday, is that there is community engagement, right? The community engagement has to be ongoing. The goal is not to just come in and make rash decisions. That's not the goal. That was not the expectation, right? It is going to require us to make sure that we are having discussions around what does co-location mean, because there are many forms of co-location. Affordable housing is only one of many, right? You know, so yeah, but we want to be able to talk about what co-location is, talk about what is the community kind of looking for in regards to what type of structures we want to have, whether it's a tall structure, a structure that looks more historic. I mean, there are so many more questions that we still have to get to. And, you know, I can tell you today that we are going to make that commitment. We are going to have those engagement opportunities. This is not the last time we're going to be here and then a decision is going to be made. I can promise you that. Today's meeting was to talk about the PowerPoint presentation that went out, and then for us to be able to get back on the timeline that, you know, over the next year and a half, we're supposed to be engaging. That's really what the next year and a half is supposed to be. It's conversations, it's collecting data, it's talking with our community.
If you are going to go wildly off the original plan to talk about housing and other issues, that timeline may need to change to incorporate the feedback that this community rightly deserves to give you.
Sorry. I wish we had 2 mics today. I'm sorry.
What assurances can you give us that in your community engagement that you're talking so much about, that you aren't ultimately going to spring this on us like you have with MacArthur? Because what you did to MacArthur is awful. And I'm not at all convinced that you're in the school is any more sorry than you're sorry that you got caught. Not that you just haven't had time to do the studies. MacArthur's the canary in the coal mine here. So can you walk us through MacArthur and give us assurances that we're not going to get screwed over like MacArthur is?
So one, I will say that we have, when do we go into our planning phase? We're in that phase, what, 2 years? When is that time?
George Mason, we have
For
2.5
George Mason?
years
Yeah,
before we get to
okay.
design.
So we're already 2.5 years ahead of MacArthur, right? In regards to like timing for community engagement and discussions. And, you know, we started talking about MacArthur just recently. And, you know, in December was when we, I think, initially had a conversation with MacArthur. You know, the MacArthur project was pushed up by 2 years, correct? So it was initially supposed to be 2 years further out. Lesson learned from MacArthur. I can tell you that, right? So the goal is that we're not repeating ourselves and repeating our practices. We have opened 2 schools since I've been here, right? So I've only been here for a year and a half, and we've already opened 2 schools. So this is not a new thing for us. We've opened Patrick Henry successfully. We've opened Ferdinand T. Day. We've opened our Early Childhood Center. And we are making sure that the engagement piece is a component. So I want to say that, you know, we're working through the Douglas MacArthur piece. This is not going to be a situation where we are jumping to, you know, conversations, you know, about co-location when we're doing the design. That's not the goal.
Because a document got leaked or mistakenly sent out.
No, we're here today to talk about that, but we were going to be having a conversation about the feasibility study and all options that are in the feasibility study in April. I mean, that was going to happen regardless. So that was happening, and that was going to be 2 years before we got into the design phase. So we're ahead of the game for this particular project because we wanted to know if it was feasible to be able to build here, or if we're going to need to look at swing space. And if we need to look at swing space, we need to put it into our CIP budget because we don't currently have it in there. There are a number of things that we needed to get that decision for, or that information for. So all of it would be. So initially, this conversation about the feasibility report or the feasibility study was supposed to happen in April, May. That was when the time frame. That's our initial time frame. We released it last Thursday. Still not completed because we wanted the community to have everything that we had as of last Thursday. But there's still other things, and that's because that information went out. So we were saying, okay, well, we just need to push everything out there so the community can have everything that we have as of today. Even though it's off our timeline and not actually completed, we wanted to put it out there. But our initial time frame was to have the full feasibility study released, which still is going to be released in April or May. That was always the plan.
I just have a quick question on that follow-up. On one of the slides in this, I think it's slide 17, you talk about the next steps, and you're talking February through April to get feedback on the feasibility study, but you're talking about feasibility study not being done until late April, early May. So what kind of feedback are you looking for in the next few months, or are you going to hold on that until the feasibility study is finished?
So we'll just have a more complete draft of the feasibility study, and the final feasibility study, the full report, will incorporate all of your comments. And that'll include what we hear tonight, since we're having this event, but we'll have future events that go through all of the different site diagrams and all of what Studio 27 was able to study, and that will be our discussion, but it needs to be included in the final report so the school board gets all that information as well.
You just mentioned that the final version will have all of our input. What's your method for getting that?
I'm sorry.
How are you going to do that?
Repeat it in the mic just so they can hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was wondering, you mentioned that you were going to, all of our comments, the neighborhood's concerns are going to be included in the final version. I want to know what kind of method are you going to use to get our input in writing to get it documented in your feasibility study?
So we try to use a few different techniques, but in general, this meeting is recorded. We go back and listen to the recordings. We have all of your emails, which will be compiled and shared. And when Studio 27 comes with their full project team, they'll be able to kind of take notes and gather what you say at the meetings. And we could also look at opportunities to get feedback from people who don't attend the meetings.
So, were you going to have a meeting like this before?
Not this soon.
Cooked and dried.
Hi, Dr. Hutchins. My name's Jennifer Hartenstein. I live across the street. I have 2 children. One is still here. One's at GW. One of the many frustrations in the last 10 days since this started, and I know that it's moving very, very quickly. I've been trying to follow it in the Alexandria Times and on listservs and on social media and what the mayor has to say, et cetera, et cetera. I can't begin to unravel who said what when. One, on the same day that you're putting out something at the school board, Mark Jinks is saying something different in the Alexandria Times, which obviously led to the chaos and the mistrust that's going on. Right now, that's in the past. There's nothing we can do about that, and there's no point in rehashing it, in my opinion. What I would like to know is who I need to aim at for the next year and a half. Because my greatest frustration about tonight is that they sent you, and you, here alone to answer for the city manager, the mayor, the city, the school board, everyone. And I know that you can't answer for the city manager, and you can't answer for the mayor of this city. I would like to know when we get to speak to them and ask them about their innovative ideas and how that got foisted onto the superintendent of schools and what they plan to do to speak to us in this neighborhood.
Nobody needs 18 months to talk about this. We're on camera. Let's take a vote.
So to answer your question, now I don't want to speak for the city manager or the mayor, but I will say that, yesterday we had our joint subcommittee meeting with the vice chair, the school board vice chair, the school board chair, the city council, one of our city councilmen, Councilman Chapman, the mayor, the city manager, Mark Jinks, and also me, the superintendent. And one thing that we did have a discussion about, we have a joint meeting that is happening on March 4th between the city council and the school board, and really co-location and guidelines and expectations, it's the topic. Because we have to have a way to have a plan as well as some guidelines of what this means. This is, co-location in regards to like Campania, those are things we've done. The Rex, we've done that before. Affordable housing, we haven't done that with schools. We've done it with the fire station, it's not a school, right? So it's a very different situation. We have to be able to work through collaboratively with these discussions. And one thing that I mentioned yesterday at our subcommittee meeting, we also have to have some research and some data to back up some of the things we want to do in order for, even me as superintendent of schools, to say, hey, I think this is worth doing on our school site. I also want to have the research to back it up. So when I'm talking to it, I can talk about, the pros and the cons, and some of the benefits of it as well as the challenges. I don't currently have enough data to do that. So we are working through how we're going to be working collaboratively, and that's starting on March the 4th at that meeting, and that's the initial meeting. From that setting, which is a public meeting, which I hope you all will watch or join us when we have that meeting, but that will give us kind of like what the next steps are in regards to co-location. For the educational piece, it is our job, and I'm speaking to Douglas MacArthur right now because we're in that. We got to focus on what concepts relate to the educational programming of the school, right? That's my job. So what we've been talking about with the board last Thursday and what the board will be making a decision on February 6th relates to what is the best concept to provide the educational programming that we want to offer kids at Douglas MacArthur, right? For any of our projects in the future, our educational programming, our educational specifications, they have to be the priority. Anything else is secondary. So we have to work through, okay, is the site safe? How large can it be? Does it accommodate the number of students we're planning to have at that particular facility? Are we meeting the green space and the play areas that we would like to have for a population that's this large? We have to do all that stuff first. We can't have, the affordable housing piece in the mix. We got to first do that. And then, you know, if there's a possibility, I don't know. But I still need a lot more research. So I do hear you in regards to us having that collaboration. So March 4th is going to be the date that we have our joint meeting. Yeah, March 4th. Let me get somebody here.
Just a point of correction, I think the mayor had posted on March 3rd.
Is it March 4th or March 3rd? I want to know the right date. Cindy, do you have the? Okay.
I'm closer to you, but I'm like, I want to get to you next. I promise. She's next. I was just closer to you.
Hey, yeah.
Hold on, wait, want to
Thank
see
you very
you. Let
much.
me move out of your way.
My name is Bill Crispin. I live in the neighborhood, and I've lived here for 15, 20 years. My question is this. Everyone here knows there is not room on this piece of real estate for a school, a park, and a 4-story affordable housing unit. You have spoken about the need for more information, more data. You've talked about the need for a lengthy process for this, a feasibility study. But this isn't really about a study. This is about making a choice. And we can make the choice now. We don't need to study this. Which two of those 3 elements do we want in our backyard? Because we can't have 3. No feasibility study is going to show you that you can put 3 here. There isn't room for 3. There's room for 2.
I vote for a park.
And just to say, the feasibility study will show what we can, what we can't do too, what we should potentially and what we may not want to do. So all that, and a part of the feasibility study, which I think is very important for us, you know, I don't want us to think that feasibility studies don't have a place, because a part of building new structures and investing dollars into any type of structure like a new school, you know, it is our responsibility, I know it's my responsibility, to make sure we have some data and research to back up whatever we're trying to do. And that feasibility study will allow us to do that.
I wasn't suggesting that you wouldn't do a feasibility study. Of course you're going to do a feasibility study. All I'm saying is, if you want to put the horse and the cart in the right order, the time is now. The horse situation is now to determine which 2 of the 3 do we want. And no amount of money is going to enable you to have 3 uses here unless you put one on top of the other.
How do you know that, sir? Are you a subject matter expert?
Yeah, because anyone who looks at the drawings can see that with the new building and a 4-story, 100-unit building, you're not going to have any park service.
So we're going to go to this question over here. I know you've been waiting patiently.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Ann Thompson. My daughter will enter kindergarten in 18 months, so this is my first interaction with the school system, and wow. I really have a process question that I cannot figure out. I went to the school board meeting last week, and so we have community engagement until April, and then there's a capital request in the fall. Where's the recommendation? At what point is there a decision on what is going to be recommended, and who makes that decision? And like I said, this is my first interaction with this entire process. So if you could just lay out more explicitly, what are the steps and who is involved in making the decisions? Thank you.
You get to see me right here.
Yeah.
So Erica, you may want to talk a little bit about the actual timeline.
So just to be clear, the feasibility study doesn't get voted on, the school board doesn't make a decision on that. What they do make a decision on is their capital improvement program budget. George Mason's starts funds, it's still 2 years out. So They will vote in the fall, and that's a public process. There's multiple work sessions. There's a public hearing. We do some outreach on the proposed CIP. What happens is the superintendent proposes a capital improvement program budget, which will include some assumptions about what the George Mason project will be, what the Cora Kelly project will be, all of our major projects in that capital improvement program budget. It's a 10-year budget, so it includes multiple facilities. And then the school board will ultimately make the decision about whether do we need to increase funding so we can provide swing space, do we need to advance projects, defer projects, things such of that nature, and that will be decided before December. Following that, the city council then considers the school board's budget and decides what they're going to fund and what they need to plan for in the 10-year process. So I hope that answered your question and helped a little bit.
So does city council get to change the school board's recommendation?
The question was, does the city council get to change the school board's recommendation? And the city council can't change the school board's recommendation, but the city council provides us funding, right? So they can't change a board's vote, but they could not fund something that the board is recommending to the city because they are a funding source, so one of our funding sources.
I just want to clarify one thing too. Even if there were co-location that was decided to be here, that was a city service, that would not be included in the school board CIP. It's usually the first week of November, the superintendent proposes his 10-year capital improvement program budget.
So, one, since this is being taped for Studio 27, I just want them to know that the field behind George Mason Elementary School is the largest open play space in Northridge. There's nothing else even that comes close to this that allows children to play in this whole area. And the first, that first piece of paper or whatever that we saw literally had the whole thing paved over. And I just think that would be a shame. And I think people would agree that preserving a lot of that green space is really important for this community. So that's just a statement. My question to you is, and I know a lot of our neighbors would love to have this answered. Is there a ratio of how many workers at the school, teachers, cafeteria workers, whatever, how many employees the school has, how many parking spaces there needs to be? Because there are lots of neighbors complain about the overflow parking in this neighborhood, and especially like Virginia Avenue, you can barely go down it because teachers park. They have to park in the neighborhood because there really aren't a lot of parking spaces here. So if this building, is going to accommodate 670 students, that's X amount of employees, how many parking spaces would have to be set aside?
Yeah, so that is something that would go through the design phase, and we would determine at that point. The city's parking code is 1 space per 25 students. George Mason does not meet that because they don't have a parking lot. I think they have like 10 spaces. But any new school that we design would have at least that many parking spaces, and probably more if we can, because we have more staff than 1 per 25 students. So that's something in Patrick Henry we built. The final design includes parking spaces for the amount of staff and not necessarily the code, which is slightly less. So I hope that helps.
I saw her hand up.
Maureen Mahoney. I live nearby. I lived here for over 30 years. And first of all, I just want to thank you for putting all of the documents with the draft feasibility studies and progress reports online. Probably a lot of people haven't seen them, but that was really very helpful. And one of the things they show is that before you ask the consultants to study co-location affordable housing options, they had prepared 2 drafts that have the new school in a location very similar to this one, with the fields preserved and the park preserved and the trees preserved. And of course, those options disappeared after they were asked to look at affordable housing, and then they drew a plan that included affordable housing and the fields were obliterated. So my question is, first of all, I encourage everyone to look at those, that it's great that we've got them, and thank you. Are those going to be part of the feasibility study? Will you let us allow and comment on those options? Because I can tell you right now, the community is overwhelmingly going to want the options that preserve the fields and the tennis courts in the woods in lieu of a housing development.
Please don't speak for other people.
So yes, all of those options will be included. Just to reiterate, the one that you all saw on social media and online was the newest and the maximum use. There will be multiple options in the feasibility study, including the ones that are posted.
Yes, Lynn Gubbs here. My family's lived here for 41 years, almost 42. Is this on? Hello? Hello? Last night at the Virginia Tech introductory meeting where we got to hear all the things that were happening at that space in Potomac. Yeah. And one of the things that they were quite proud of was the development that included the school and affordable housing all in one unit. I know this is before your time here, but I haven't seen this, I haven't been able to find a feasibility study as to how the decision was made to do that combination. And it seems to me that it establishes a precedent that precedes even MacArthur in terms of developing this kind of a amalgamation. I would like to know how community involvement could have gotten involved, especially since there's really not a community over there. People haven't moved in yet. But I don't know of any pedagogical or other educational research that would inform the development of that kind of a facility that really marries affordable housing and education. And I just want to know for what's going on there from your perspective. What do you plan to do? Are there feasibility studies for the educational part of that are going on? Because it establishes a precedent. I'm really interested in what you have to say about that.
So the question was about the Virginia Tech Innovation Campus over at Potomac Yard, correct? And you know, a part of the developer's concept is to have housing and stores and schools. I mean, that's the concept for that entire community because they're building a whole community there. So that concept is something that has been attractive to Virginia Tech and what they're trying to, you know, innovate over there. We right now don't have a feasibility study that's been conducted. We have no confirmation that, you know, we're going to have the school with affordable housing in the Virginia Tech location. What we do have confirmation of is that we have space in that area. What we're going to use that space for, we have not decided as of yet. So that's not something that we've been trying to get through the high school project, you know, that we're working on. That's going to be at Minnie Howard. We're trying to get through Douglas MacArthur. And now we're trying to work through, you know, the George Mason piece and Core Kelly. So we haven't had the time to really engage in that specific discussion as of yet. But that is the concept for that entire community over there, that everything is kind of expected to have a multi-purpose, what is it called? Multi-use? Multi-use, mixed use, thank you, mixed use space over in that Potomac Yard area.
Dr. Hutchins, we have one over here and one over here.
I have a quick process clarification. Very quick process clarification and stakeholders. The question over there was about the timeline. What I heard you say, please help me understand, is that the school board will make recommendations, but that the city can separately require co-location with their own budget. Is that correct?
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I didn't say that. What I said that, that the school board, they can make a recommendation and that the city council can't change their recommendation, but they provide the funding so they could, they cannot fund something that the board has recommended, but they cannot make the decision for the board.
Right, they can't make the school board's decision, but what I heard you imply was that the city council can provide funding for co-location. Is that a separate budget?
Well, it would have to be a part of the board's recommendation. Like, they can't just say, go co-locate, right, without the board approving it. Because the school system, we own the land. Now, if it's something that they own, it's a different story, right? So if there's city land, and I think, we talked about this yesterday briefly at the subcommittee meeting, and we're going to talk more in depth when we have conversations about all co-location and guidelines. But the school division, when we own certain land, we have to provide permission to build on that land, So the board would have to have a recommendation that they want to build whatever it is on that land. What the city provides us is the funding to be able to actually build or do a renovation or whatever we're choosing to do.
Do you own this entire parcel?
I don't know off the top of my head. So, I saw, which one was over here? Thank you.
Mine's a process, yay! Mine is a process question. You said the feasibility study is in March or April. Is that the final feasibility study with cost? And if they get back there and like, oh my gosh, this is like a sliding slope wetland, if we put a school here, it's gonna slide into my driveway. Will that be part of that study, or is it still just a concept phase?
Actually, let me go up to the front so everybody can see me. So all of that is actually included in the final feasibility study, and that happens April. May, April/May, right? But the goal is April to have it completed. So it does include a cost analysis, the environmental factors, all of that is a part of the final feasibility study, in addition to everything else that you've seen.
So if the city does own that property, which we're just some people said that, is that part of the cost of buying that land from the city? Or how does that work?
So the city of Alexandria owns most of ACPS school properties. This whole site is one lot, and it is all zoned for educational use. And I think what you were referring to from the city attorney means that that really designates us as the controller of this entire site. That's the whole lot. Yes. So the city, we have a lot of partnerships with rec. So like rec will resurface tennis courts, let's say, or they'll redo a turf field. That may be on our sites, and kind of vice versa. So we may use, like at Mini Howard, that whole site is ours, but half of it's zoned public open space. So that's really REC's responsibilities. We really all work together and are all responsible for all of the sites, but the city of Alexandria owns most of ACPS school sites.
Somebody says, when that guy says we can't put something on ACPS property, it's not really ACPS, but it's all city property. So they can reason that.
It's ACPS property by use, but if you look at the title, it says City of Alexandria.
I'm going to get you in the back first, and I'll come back up to you.
Okay, I just want to follow up on that based on last night's meeting. It was referenced at that joint subcommittee meeting. Right? Yeah, the Brandon decision.
Thank you. Gail Hartman, I live close by. I have one kid in the school, one kid in GW. I think I had seen in the plans that if you build a second school somewhere on this lot, which we don't know if that's going to happen, but if it did, this building would be preserved for community use. Is that still true? And if so, what does that mean and how is that decided?
So that was one of the options that wasn't necessarily what, just like all these other options that we've been talking about. So in the feasibility study, what we're going to see, especially in the final presentation or the final study, you're going to see a number of different iterations and options that are feasible. And that's just one of them, to preserve this building, use it as something else, and have a school. But that's just an option. It's not necessarily a recommendation.
How does that get decided? If this building is preserved for community use, like, does the community get to say what?
So yes, so throughout this whole process, it goes back to us making sure we're engaged in the community, especially once we get some of these options, that are all the options. Right now, you all got to see, 2, but there are many options and many iterations that we have opportunities to do focus groups and surveys. That's always a part of the process. We're just not there yet because we would be asking you all to give feedback and to chime in on things that aren't complete. So the April-May timeframe, we have a completed document. You all are going to see all of that information.
I saw somebody, it was Kay first, and then I got to come to the back.
Thank you. Yes. So Kay Stimson, I'm your Civic Association President for Northridge. Yay. Thank you, everyone. We will be back here on February 10th to discuss how our community stays on top of this. I want to assure you that knowing how important this school is to our community, we already have a Civic Association represented on the advisory committee, Amy Burwell, who's doing a terrific job of keeping us plugged in, not only with the administration here and the PTA, but we want to hear from more people, so I hope you'll come out to that. So I really appreciate the lady in the back who said she can't follow this. I just want to ask a couple of follow-up questions. One, I think I went to a legislative subcommittee last night. You were there, Dr. Hutchins. You were there, Erica. I heard the mayor ask our city attorney for an attorney general's opinion on land titling. So it does sound like, to the point of the questions about who owns this land, do you have any information that you can provide to us about that conversation that's being had with city council, with our city attorney right now, or can we get that information when it's provided to you?
I don't have that information, but I know that on March 4th, a part of the discussion is really to talk through co-location, to answer questions that the board has, as well as to ask questions from the city council or the board and the city manager and the superintendent. So that is going to be our opportunity to actually have a public discussion around all of these specific items.
Issues?
Yes.
Thank you. You've been great about answering a lot of questions, and everyone knows I ask a lot of questions, so 2 more quickly. One, what is the meeting on February 13th that's happening at T.C. Williams High School where there's going to be a joint ACPS city task force discussion on co-location? And second, I'm holding the draft resolution that the city manager, Mark Jinks, introduced last night to the subcommittee group, which also appears to be a proposal to revise the city's co-location priorities, or at least to expand them to include some additional options like affordable housing. How does all of this fit into it? Because I really think everyone here deserves an ability to participate and offer feedback. Thank you. So I'll talk about the February 13th meeting, and then I'll give it to Dr. Hutchins to talk about the resolution. February 13th, so as part of the task force recommendations, one of the things they recommended was that the city and schools work together on a joint facilities master plan. So basically looking at all of our assets, looking at school capacity needs, looking at fire station needs and all of the different capital needs we have, and finding the best use of all of our assets. So the joint facilities master plan is supposed to do that. It's an 18-month process. The February 13th meeting is our first meeting, and it's an open house really for people to come, get information, ask some questions. It's very related to this work, but it's kind of coming, if we had the joint facilities master plan 3 years ago, we would have answered a lot of the questions we're asking tonight. So I think it will be good for you to come and share any comments that you may have. Co-location will be a subject. We don't have any boards on the specific projects planned, but we can certainly, the same people will be there to answer the questions, and it'll be good just to get involved in future projects. So after Douglas MacArthur and to some extent, George Mason may be included as part of the Joint Facilities Master Plan, you may want to see just what it's all about. So that's what that is. Where is it? Sorry, it's at T.C. Williams, King Street in the cafeteria, February 13th. I believe it starts at 6. What about March 14th? I don't know what the March.
Central office?
It's going to be in the school board, meeting space at central office on Braddock Place. The second question that you had was in regards to the actual resolution, and that is going to be a part of the discussion on March the 4th, yes. So that's a draft that was shared with the subcommittee, but it's a discussion that has to happen with all board members and all city council members, and that will happen at the March 4th meeting. Okay, I know I'm supposed to go to the back.
Appreciate it. Sorry, I know we're pushing time. Just a very quick comment, and that is, I know we've heard a lot of very valid concerns from a lot of people tonight. I think there are process concerns with how people found out about the potential plan here, and I think there are real substantive concerns with the lack of green space, changing the nature of what we see here at George Mason. I've been a community member here for 7 years. I've had 2 kids come through George Mason, possibly another kid coming through here depending on redistricting and things like that. But I do want to make the point that there are many in this community, myself included, who are very interested in seeing proposals that can accommodate the very valid things we're talking about here tonight in terms of preserving the history of this place, the green space, and how we can also welcome in new people into our community, perhaps through co-location, perhaps through affordable housing. I understand that people are on different sides of this issue. You've heard a lot of people who are opposed to this, and that is their viewpoint. It's their prerogative to have that. There are a lot of people who want to let this process play out, myself included, and who are very much in favor of thinking about sacrificing some green space in favor of building affordable housing to welcome more folks into our community. That's just the comment that I want to make.
All right, let me go down here.
Hi, this is my son Riley here was begging me to ask you to please not take away his baseball fields. T-ball and baseball and those fields are in high demand. My husband coaches the neighborhood George Mason T-ball team, and we will have to drive the kids far away. We all work in places where we can't be here in 10 minutes after we get off work. We can't drive across the city to a different baseball or t-ball field. We want to keep those fields in this neighborhood.
Thank you. Matt Heckel, I live right over there. I'm really comforted to hear a lot of the questions here tonight, and especially that the option of building in this location was part of the original presentation. I'd love to see that because it seems to me that a whole lot of energy and time and money has been spent in trying to figure out how to build someplace rather than right here. My question, though, is the projections for student growth, there's no really reference given for them. How far out does that projection go? How long is the expected useful life of the building? And perhaps, if you could, or somebody at some point address how much so much time and energy was spent on investigating a swing space that really is only about a 2-year inconvenience while the school would be built here for something that's going to long outlive it, and all of us would make use of.
Okay, so your first question, I don't remember if it was the building or the enrollment projection, but I'll go with the building. Oh, okay. So we try to build buildings to last 30 to 50 years. This school has been here far longer than that, so we want to make sure we're not only building flexible spaces, but we're building places that can kind of survive the test of time. So that's what we plan for. That's what will be in the feasibility study, including operating costs over the course of that time frame. As far as enrollment projections, we do enrollment projections annually for 10 years, kind of in alignment with our capital improvement program. And then we look just as a city, what are the different developments that are happening within the city that may influence the enrollment even beyond 10 years out, just so that we're able to plan for those things. And as part of the school board's redistricting implementation policy that they adopted a few years ago, we are looking at our boundaries every 5 years or every time a new school is brought online. So where George Mason may not be expected to grow to the capacity that we have in here, we have to look at our division-wide needs, and we're overcrowded at other schools. So the idea is that the boundary may grow in the future when we build the new school. And then your last question. Enrollment? No, I got enrollment. Enrollment, building. Oh, okay.
Spending so much energy on the swing space, it's only a 2-year inconvenience versus the length of the life of the school.
Right, so,
What all of us will be left with once the 2-year build-out is complete, for many, many years to come.
right, and so a swing space evaluation will be included as part of the feasibility study, and that'll be something for the superintendent and the school board to consider. Are we only taking a couple more? I don't know. Helen?
We'll take these last. Well, I got 3 over there.
I'll make mine short because I know we're running long. Bill Barnett, I'm a short-time Alexandria resident. My question is, you've discussed a lot about process. I think there's a good deal of disagreement about the process and how it's played out. But your position and the board's position post-October with meeting with the city seems to be that you needed information before you could bring this type of idea to the community to say this is what we want to do. Will the board commit that if the sentiment of the community is that they do not want the affordable housing option as part of this construction project, they will honor the neighborhood and the community's wishes and vote that down?
Well, I know I can't speak on behalf of the board, but I can say that the board has to put community input into consideration. I can't say, it would be hard for me to speak for them and say, we can honestly say that, because it's hard to say when, for example, have you talked to every, community member? How do you get everybody to give their recommendation? Even the community here tonight, it's not everybody lives in the George Mason, community. So, I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, but I do know that for any decision we make, community input is a very important factor for our board members. They always want to know, well, what is the community thinking? What are the community recommendations? What are the community, comments? And that's why a part of all of our projects, we have, community engagement opportunities in multiple ways, from meetings to surveys to focus groups. That's how we get that information. And then the woman in the back.
Thank you. Just really quickly, I know that the city is all about complete streets and being able to walk everywhere and, all of that. There's also an extreme lack of fields in the city for sports, all sports, turf sports, grass fields, baseball fields, all of that. So how does the complete streets and walking everywhere and removal of the fields on this site, how does that jibe?
I think those are all things we have to consider, too. I mean, we have to look at all factors. So I think those are areas that we will have to explore and discuss as well. So that's included.
If you want to talk about exploring, it can take almost an hour just to get to the field that's a stone's throw away from here. Just so you know, like the ball field, because of the backups, because of 495. So even though there are other fields very close by, it can take an hour, and you're very pressured with your children, getting them there on time. Even going down to Old Town at the 495 near the I can't think of the name of that one. The Lee Center, whatever. They take so much time to get there because of the time of day and because of all the traffic. So this is, even if we can walk here, it's not always even going to be here. So this is like one option for these people that live in this community. And you don't displace one community in favor of another. You create new communities.
I'm Suzanne Nagy. I'm a longtime Alexandria resident. This is for the record on the procedural aspect of community engagement. And my comment is informed by the fact that I work for a large federal entity that does capital projects. And we could never do what we do without feasibility studies and stakeholder engagement. And I would recommend that you, in the spirit of transparency, articulate what the fora will be. Will they be town halls? Will they be public comment period? If they are open fora, will people be allowed to talk or will they be shut down? Surveys are questionable in my humble opinion because they're often written with agendas in mind. But I don't care what they are, just make it public, let the word get out, The neighborhood association is but one for us. It's not the only one. We have different voices here. I'm hearing them. We just need to make sure that there is a record of what the community wants, so that if a different decision is taken, we know what was documented and how the decision was taken. And thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you. And typically, we do a lot of forms of community engagement, and all the things that you mentioned, we have used those strategies so far, and additional as well. I do want to conclude by just saying this is not the last time you all are going to see Dr. Hutchings, everybody. It's not the last time we're going to have a community meeting either. But I want to thank you for coming out tonight and for your candor, which I know it's not, it's something that you all do with George Mason. I'm learning. I'm like, okay, vocal. Which is a good thing, though, because we learned from it, too. So I value the input that you all have given us this evening. And this is information that we have to take back to our team, and we have to continue to gather so that when it's time for us to have our final feasibility study to post and to share out with the community and to start that community engagement, that we have multiple perspectives and multiple opinions as well as insight from you all. So I wish you well this evening. I thank you. I will still be here if you want to come up. I see you.
Are we
Pointing.
supposed to sign these, like put email addresses on, or I don't know?
No, they were gonna be for questions, but I chose to just get the questions this way instead of writing them down. So we will be sure to, your question was about email addresses? Yes. Yeah, so we will put this information on George Mason's website so you all can have access to it, and I'll get your information after this so I can email to you. Thank you all.